I've bled nearly every day of my life since my early teenage years, and that's probably the best thing that has ever happened to me. Now, after being demonetized on my already non-monetized channel, what did I and what can you gain from it? Good God, what a great intro to a video, am I right? Definitely not grim at all. But yeah, I just thought that a video like this is probably gonna be really helpful to someone that is super ambitious with a business or their craft, but is also in a lot of bad situations that are forced onto them by fate. Whether that's chronic pain, a disability, mental or physical, or some other thing that makes you realize just how constantly you are being held back. In my case, I've had extremely severe cystic acne since I was like 14, 16-ish. And at first I thought it was, just a normal teenage thing. I'll grow out of it, it'll be fine. And then I was 17 and then 18 and it never really went away. If anything, it just became worse, more bigger and painful. I still have bumps on my face that have not gone away even though it's been years, like this one here on my nose. And I don't think I need to tell you just how being in pain nearly 24/7 affects the prospects of running a business, sleeping, or goodness, just sitting in a chair in peace. With my years of finding the one angle on a chair that does not hurt, I'm a qualified contortionist. By the time I was 18, I actually went to my first visit at a dermatologist where they got me on an Accutane course, but then shortly after,
coronaviruses.
The World Health Organization has officially called it
now locking down their countries.
Yeah, that whole debacle happened and then I was back at square one again. I only had enough time to stick with it for it to clear my face, but then somehow it just migrated as down to the south to the entirety of my body. Now, how might you expect I was living in those 3 to 4 years before I got onto my second course? In pure pain. Good God, it was not pretty. But then you realize a few things when you're in a situation like that. Like, first of all, that you are not limitless. You have very real biological and time limits that are put on you. Even as much as we dearly want to believe that it's not the case. Sure, they're a lot less constraining than we believe, but they still exist. I had plenty of times where the only way that was possible for me to exist without being in pain is to lay in bed. Literally anything else, it was just excruciating. And as soon as you are in bed, you can't focus because obviously you're conditioned to be sleepy in bed and you can't pop endless painkillers because then you wreck your body. So it was a screwed if you do, screwed if you don't kind of situation. So you learn to do what you can with what you have in that particular day. And if that means that you're laying in bed all day just reading and listening to podcasts because that's all that you can literally do, then you do that. Because otherwise you just make crappy work. And if your body only lets you work a couple of hours before it's super inflamed and everything hurts, then you work those 2 hours, even though you'll feel like a completely lazy turd in the wind. Because you barely got anything done that day. But then there's a philosophy I found myself coming back to over and over again. Just as a way to reframe that if I did everything that I could possibly do, then by definition it is not laziness. And you have an internal barometer of when you're being lazy and when you're not. You know it. If you did everything that you could do and that you know that you can do, then what room does laziness possibly have? Okay, fine. Let's just say that you push past the pain. Where does that lead? You'll make crappy work, you'll burn yourself out quicker, and if you do enough damage to yourself, then you're not gonna be able to do anything the next day or even longer, God forbid. That's the best way that I found in order to preserve self-accountability while still making sure that the ball is being pushed forward in my life, or well, the best that it could possibly be at least. There's this idea that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it's true, but it's not because it physically does so. It's because that when you're put in a situation like that, you're forced to fight back eventually. So you look for what solutions, changes, things that I can do in order to adapt to the situation to either completely fix the problem or at least mitigate the effects. I knew that there were some foods and categories that if I ate them it would make it significantly worse, so I just tried to do my best kind of in order to avoid them, like mainly saturated fats and highly processed sugars. That was the thing for me, and still is. For whatever reason, my body is the most inflamed as soon as I wake up and as soon as I'm about to go to sleep, so I just pushed off work from those times when I could. Exercising, cold showers, caffeine even a little bit, all of those helped. My point is that you just don't give up on yourself, and the ability to try again and again in order to find something that helps or works is probably the most valuable ability that I ever developed in my life so far. And now with being on my second and hopefully last course of Accutane, it feels a lot like training with weighted vests and ankle weights your entire life, then being finally allowed to take them off. Slowly, but still allowed. Any pain, any problem is way easier to deal with because you're so used to excruciating pain always. I'm slowly able to work as much as I like without constraints. And because I'm so used to trying to focus through the pain, it's actually a lot easier and I can do it for way longer when I'm not in pain. And I don't have to worry as much if my body is going to randomly screw me over tomorrow. And that's why suffering for a decade is probably the best thing that has ever happened to me, because in trying to deal with it, it made me a lot stronger than I have ever been. And so hopefully as you do with yours, it's going to do the same for you. And so with that, remember, if you're not struggling, you're not growing. And so, bye.